The dishwasher was still running when I realized she hadn't left alone. You'd think it'd be something dramatic, right? Lipstick on a collar, perfume that doesn't belong, a whispery voicemail from some guy named Troy. Nope. It was the forks. There were 3 of them in the sink, still wet, and I only used one. I'd been out late. My dumb fantasy football league had their draft at Dave's place, and honestly, I was stalling going home. Camille had been weird all week. Short replies. Long showers. That awful, brittle smile she uses when she's lying but doesn't want to get caught. She said she was staying in. Wine, Netflix, maybe a bath, her text read. I didn't question it. I didn't want to. But then I saw the forks. And the wine glasses. 2. Both red-stained. Both sitting beside the sink like they hadn't expected to be seen. I know what you're thinking. Could have been a friend. Could have been her sister. Could have been anything. But it wasn't. Because of the smell. The cologne hit me as soon as I stepped into the bedroom. It wasn't mine. I wear citrusy stuff, the kind you buy in bulk from outlet stores. This was musky, expensive, and arrogant. It smelled like a man who buys watches instead of checking the time. I didn't say anything. I didn't text her. I just sat on the edge of the bed and waited. 2 hours later, I heard the front door unlock. I didn't even turn my head. She walked in giggling. His voice followed, deep, confident, like he knew the punchline to a joke I didn't even understand. They didn't see me at first. They were too busy unzipping each other with their eyes. She was wearing the blouse I bought her last Christmas, the one she claimed was too tight, and not really her color. He said something that made her laugh. Loud, like joy had been living in her lungs all night. And then she turned the corner and saw me. Everything in her face dropped. The blood, the smile, the false reality she'd been dancing in. She froze like she was trying to decide whether to lie or faint. I didn't speak. I didn't move. I just stood up slowly, walked past them both, and into the dining room. Opened the drawer. Pulled out the little velvet box I'd hidden under the table runner. She gasped. She thought it was a ring. It was, but not for her anymore. I opened the box, took the ring out, walked back to where they stood, still frozen like actors in a paused movie. And I placed it, without a word, into the man's hand. His eyes flicked from the ring to Camille. His smirk faltered. And then I whispered, "She wears it when she lies." And I walked out. I didn't sleep that night. Not even close. I ended up at a 24-hour diner just off exit 19, sitting in a cracked red booth, stirring a coffee I never drank. The waitress asked 3 times if I wanted a refill. I didn't answer once. My phone buzzed nonstop. Camille calling, then texting, then calling again. I didn't block her. Not yet. I wanted to see what kind of lies she'd reach for first. The first message said, "Ronan, I can explain." Classic. Like there's a manual somewhere that tells cheaters what to say when they're caught. The second was longer. "He just came over to talk about the conference. Nothing happened." Right. Just a little wine, a little perfume, and a laugh that stripped everything we built bare. At 3:12 a.m., she sent, "Please come home." Home? What home? The place where she let another man fill a glass and steal my place at the table? Still, by morning, I went back. Not for her. For me. I needed to see how much of it was real and how much was just something I made up to feel sane. When I walked in, the place smelled like panic. Bleach, candles, the works. She tried to erase everything. But the house remembered. There were 2 wine stains on the rug, one big, one faint, like someone had tried to scrub it out too late. Her heels were in the corner, next to his leather jacket. She missed that. Or maybe she left it there hoping I'd believe it was mine. I found her in the bathroom, sitting on the floor with mascara running down her cheeks. She didn't speak. She just looked up at me like a kid caught sneaking out after curfew. "You lied," I said. She didn't deny it. She just reached for my hand. I didn't give it. "I was lonely," she whispered, as if that was a valid excuse to bring another man into our bed. "I was here." I snapped, voice cracking like a teenager's. "I've always been here." She shook her head like being present wasn't enough. And then she said it. The thing that fractured something in me that may never heal. "He listens to me." I laughed. It came out bitter, loud, ugly. "Right? He listens to you. While undressing you." She slapped me. Not hard, but enough to stun the room into silence. I didn't react. I just walked to the bedroom, grabbed a sharpener from the drawer, and walked back to the mirror above the sink. I wrote 3 words in huge black letters. "So did I." Then I dropped the marker on the counter and left again. I could hear her sobbing behind me. But this time, I didn't pause at the door. I didn't go far after I left. Just the parking lot, actually. I sat in the car with the engine off, watching the condensation build up on the windshield like it was trying to blur out the disaster behind me. I wasn't ready to leave, not really. I was stuck in that pathetic middle place, too hurt to stay, too cowardly to walk away. So I sat there, doing what I do best, overthinking. My phone buzzed again. I ignored it. But when I saw the name flash across the screen, Kelsey, Camille's assistant, I hesitated. I hadn't heard from her since I helped her carry her broken printer to her car last year. She was always polite, always professional. Her message was short. Check her music history. Trust me. It took me a second to realize what she meant. Camille and I shared a music app. It synced across our devices. I opened it, almost not wanting to see. But I couldn't stop myself. There it was. A playlist. Midnight Drive's Black Heart. Created 2 weeks ago. Updated 4 hours ago. The songs? All soft, moody, romantic. One titled, Your Shirt Still Smells Like Her. Another called Lie to Me Slowly. But what really hit me was the third track down, His Hotel Room. And the date she added it matched the night she claimed she was working late because of a partner meeting. I scrolled further. Comments. Likes. Shared to one other user. The username? B. Lake. I sat there gripping the phone like it was going to confess something else. I felt this sharp, boiling thing behind my eyes. Not just betrayal, but humiliation. She was making memories with him. Playlists. Moments. Songs we used to share, now twisted into some postmodern affair mixtape. I went back into the house. She jumped when I opened the door. I'm done pretending, I said quietly, holding up the phone. Her eyes darted to it, and then back to me, like she already knew what I saw. Ronan. No, I cut her off. You made a playlist? With him? Are you serious? Do you think this is a movie? Am I supposed to fight for you now? She started crying again, but this time I couldn't bring myself to care. I walked to the speaker in the living room, connected to our shared account, and hit play. The opening chords of His Hotel Room spilled into the air. She covered her mouth. Her knees buckled like her body knew what her brain didn't want to admit. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I just said one sentence that I didn't even plan. You gave him a soundtrack while you destroyed us. Then I turned off the speaker, walked upstairs, and started packing. Not clothes. Not my laptop. Just the one thing that still belonged to me, my dignity. I wasn't packing to leave permanently. Not yet. I was packing because I needed space that didn't smell like him. I couldn't sit on that couch another minute knowing his cologne had probably sunk into the cushions. So I grabbed a duffel, stuffed it with just enough clothes to get by, and texted my friend Milo, the one with the always broken guest futon and a mini fridge full of expired yogurt. Pathetic, I know, but it beat sharing air with Camille. She didn't follow me upstairs. She just sat in the kitchen like she'd melted into the chair. Good. Let her sit in the same silence she handed me. As I zipped up the bag, something slid out from under the dresser. An envelope. Nothing special, just one of those plain white business-size ones, like the kind you get warranty info in. I would have ignored it, but my name was scribbled on the corner. Not in Camille's handwriting. I opened it. Inside was a folded receipt from a hotel about 45 minutes out of town. The name at the top, Everbrook Hills Spa and Lodge. My heart thumped. The date? 9 days ago. A Thursday. She had told me she was visiting her aunt that evening. I remember it because she asked if I could pick up dinner on my way home. I flipped it over. 2 guests. 1 king bed. Room service. Strawberries. Champagne. Oysters. What kind of cartoon-level cheating cliché is that? And written in blue pen at the bottom, probably by the front desk clerk. Thank you, Mr. Lake. Hope to see you both again soon. Mr. Lake. Blake. That's when it stopped being sad and started feeling surgical. I folded the receipt neatly, slid it into my jacket pocket, and finished packing in silence. Camille didn't ask where I was going when I came down the stairs. She just watched me like a woman hoping to wake up from a nightmare she designed herself. I walked out the door, but I didn't head straight to Milo's. I drove to Everbrook. I needed to see it. The scene of the crime. It was almost funny. The staff was still in a cheery mood, like I was some returning guest. A young woman at the desk smiled at me and asked if I was checking in. I didn't respond. I just looked around the lobby. The velvet chairs. The gold-accented lighting. The fireplace where she probably sat wrapped in a robe, giggling into champagne flutes. There was a framed photo by the concierge desk, a promotional snapshot of our happy guests. 6 couples, smiling, holding hands, all blurry except one pair, caught in perfect focus. Camille and Blake, her head tilted against his, her hand on his knee. It wasn't staged. It was real, casual, comfortable. Like this wasn't a mistake, it was routine. I didn't take the photo. I just stared at it long enough to burn it into my mind, then turned and left without saying a word. On the way back to the car, I texted her. Just 5 words. Next time, book farther away. I didn't wait for a reply. I didn't need one. For the first time since this entire thing started, I didn't feel like the one being abandoned. I felt like the one finally walking out. I stayed with Milo for 2 nights. He didn't ask questions, which I appreciated, but I could tell he wanted to. He kept glancing at the ring I'd tossed on the coffee table, like it was going to explode. The futon creaked, the fridge hummed, and the air was thick with all the things I wasn't saying. But late into the second night, after a failed attempt at sleep and half a bag of stale pretzels, I broke. She cheated. I told him, eyes fixed on the ceiling. And not just once. He nodded like he already knew. Maybe I'd been more obvious than I thought. Or maybe Camille had always been the type of person you don't leave alone in a room with something delicate. That's when the idea hit me. It wasn't revenge, not really. It was more like desperation dressed up as curiosity. I needed to know how far this thing went. How many lies were sitting between the couch cushions back home? And the one way to find out. Her laptop. Camille was always lazy with her passwords. Every account she ever made had the same security answer, my stupid middle name. Ellison. I hated it growing up. Kids called me Jelly Ron in middle school. She used to tease me about it, too, until I finally said I'd never tell anyone again. Then she turned around and made it her go-to secret. So while she was busy texting apologies and pretending to be the victim, I was quietly logging into her email from my phone in Milo's bathroom. It worked on the first try. I didn't even have to dig. The rot was right there at the top. A folder marked Archive, Blake. My hands went numb. I opened it anyway. Inside were threads of messages going back months. Not days. Not weeks. Months. The first one was from a business trip she claimed had gone so boring, she binged a whole season of some legal drama in her hotel bed. Except she wasn't alone in that bed. There were messages about that night. About the robe that didn't fit. The overpriced room service. The way he'd made her feel alive again. I kept scrolling, and it got worse. Inside jokes. Code words. Attachments. She'd sent him photos, nothing graphic, thank God, but personal. Things she never even shared with me. Her in the mirror at work. Her barefoot in the garden. Her holding the mug I bought her on our honeymoon with Wife Life, printed across it like some sick joke. And then I saw the worst part. She'd told him about me. Not just in passing. She mocked me. Screenshots of our texts. Captioned, Ronan trying to be deep again, face with rolling eyes. He made soup and called it a romantic surprise, face with tears of joy. I felt sick. Physically sick. I dropped the phone in the sink and gripped the edges like the world was tilting. It wasn't just betrayal. It was betrayal with commentary. I didn't cry. I wanted to. But all that came out was this cold, silent rage that settled behind my ribs like frost. I took screenshots. Dozens. Then I logged out, wiped the browser, and stared at myself in Milo's bathroom mirror. She made me a joke in her secret world. And now I was going to remind her who taught her how to laugh in the first place. I didn't confront her right away. That would have been too easy for her. Let her cry. Let her spin it. Let her weaponize guilt. No, I wanted her to feel the slow collapse of everything she thought she still controlled. So I went back home, like nothing happened. It was almost funny how fast she jumped to pretend things were normal. She'd cleaned the whole house, cooked this elaborate dinner she clearly found online. Some Pinterest-tier lemon-thyme chicken with roasted vegetables arranged like a magazine spread. Candles were lit. Her hair curled. That one song she always played during anniversaries floated faintly in the background. She was trying to reverse time. Fix the scene. Turn betrayal into an afterthought. I sat at the table. I didn't eat. She sat across from me, smiling like a nervous intern. I just wanted to do something special, she said. I nodded. I didn't touch the fork. She reached across, touched my hand, and whispered, "Can we start over?" I looked at her, looked through her. Then I asked, "Do you think Blake likes time?" Her hand jerked back like I'd burned her. What? I tilted my head. I mean, you made this for him before, right? Or did you save the fancy recipes for the guy who paid the mortgage? Her mouth opened, closed. Panic started swimming in her eyes. I saw the emails, I said quietly. The photos, the jokes, the playlist, the hotel. She tried to speak. I raised one finger. You mocked me. You made our marriage into punchlines and background noise for your affair. You wore my shirt in those photos. Camille sat frozen, her face pale, her jaw trembling like she was finally realizing the damage couldn't be undone with a casserole and eye contact. I didn't mean, she started. I cut her off again. You meant it. Every word. Every emoji. Every LOL after dragging my name through your little love diary. She looked down at her lap like the floor would offer escape. Then I stood. You don't get to cry first, I said. I walked around the table, reached into my jacket, and pulled out a red envelope. She stared at it like it might bleed. What is that? She asked. Instructions, I said. Because I've decided to give you a parting gift. You like games, right? Secrets sneaking around? I placed the envelope gently beside her untouched plate. In there, you'll find 3 things, I said. The password to your old email account. I changed it. The login to our shared bank account. Don't bother checking the balance. And a list of everyone I BCC'd on the email I sent 2 hours ago. She blinked. What email? I leaned in closer and whispered. The one with the screenshots. Her hands began shaking. You didn't. I did. Your parents. Your boss. Your best friend you lied to about that spa trip. The committee who just nominated you for that ethics award. Oh, and Blake's fiancée. Sweet girl. She replied already. Camille looked like she couldn't breathe. I stepped back and straightened my jacket. I may be a whiny husband, I said, but I'm not stupid, and I'm done being quiet. Then I left her sitting there at that ridiculous dinner table, alone, in the glow of candles meant for someone else. I thought I'd feel better. That's the crazy part. After all the emails I sent, after dropping that envelope like a bomb in the middle of her carefully curated fake domestic scene, I expected some sense of triumph. But that didn't come. Not at first. Just silence. And the kind of deep, echoing exhaustion that makes you feel like you've been digging your own grave with a teaspoon. I stayed at Milo's again that night. He tried to distract me with pizza and a bad sci-fi movie, but my head kept drifting back to that dinner table, to the look on Camille's face when I told her who got the screenshots. It was like I'd taken away her script, left her on stage with no lines to read. She wasn't just caught, she was exposed. But that wasn't the part that got to me. What stuck with me was the email from Blake's fiancée. I'd sent the evidence to her expecting a thank you, maybe a slap of reality for Camille. Instead, her reply came just 3 hours later, and it wasn't what I expected. It simply said, let's meet. I have something for you. Attached was an address. At first I thought it might be a setup. Maybe she didn't believe me. Maybe she wanted to scream at me for blowing up her life. But something about the tone, so calm, almost rehearsed, made me go. The next morning, I drove to the address. It was a quiet suburb, one of those too perfect places with little white fences and recycled bins lined up in military precision. She met me at the door, already holding a small black box in her hands. Her name was Lila. She was prettier than Camille in that effortless, non-theatrical way. No fake lashes. No performative sadness. Just steady eyes and a posture like she hadn't been surprised in years. Come in, she offered. I shook my head. I'd rather not. She nodded once, then held out the box. This was Blake's. He left it at my place when he moved out 2 weeks ago. I hesitated, then took it. Wait, he moved out already? She actually laughed. Dry, humorless. He thought he was sneaky. But cheaters are always boring. Patterns are easy to catch. I opened the box right there on the porch. Inside was a stack of printed photographs, and at the very bottom, a flash drive. Photos of Camille and Blake. Together at restaurants, parks, even one at our neighborhood farmer's market. Camille said she only went there for herbs. Apparently, she also went for hand-holding and public cheating. I started taking those 2 months ago, Lila said softly. I wasn't sure at first, but then I saw her name on a reservation he forgot to delete from our shared calendar. I stared at her. So you knew this whole time? She looked past me, toward the street. I wanted to see how far he'd go, how far she would. And now, her voice tightened. Now I want them both to rot. She handed me a final envelope. And there is a copy of a cease and desist. I'm pressing charges for defamation and professional sabotage. She emailed my employer pretending to be a client and tried to get me fired. I traced it back to her IP address. I was speechless. Lila folded her arms. So, I think it's safe to say Camille and Blake made the same mistake. What's that? I asked. They underestimated who they betrayed. And just like that, she went back inside and shut the door. I stood there for a long time with that box in my hands, realizing I hadn't just caught Camille cheating. I'd stepped into a war she didn't even know she'd started. And it was only getting started. I didn't go back to the house right away. After meeting Lila and seeing just how deep Camille's deception really ran, something inside me finally clicked. Not in a dramatic, movie-worthy way. No slamming fists, no shouted threats. Just quiet. The kind of quiet you feel when the storm's finally done destroying everything. I sat in my car with that black box on the passenger seat, watching the sun come up over a strip mall. There was a coffee shop opening, a delivery truck beeping, a kid with a backpack waiting for the bus. Life didn't stop just because my marriage did. And somehow, that made everything feel a little less tragic. Camille blew up my phone all morning. Missed calls, paragraph texts, voice messages that started with apologies and ended in begging. But I didn't listen. I didn't answer. Instead, I drove to the lawyer's office. I'd printed out everything. Emails, photos, receipts, the playlist, even the cease and desist letter from Lila. The lawyer barely blinked. He'd seen it all before. But when he looked up from the stack and asked, "Do you want revenge or release?" I didn't have to think. "Release," I said. Camille was served 2 days later. She didn't try to fight it. I think some part of her knew she'd already lost. Still, she tried to write me one last letter. It arrived in a padded envelope, handwritten, probably hoping to pull on some old memory of who we used to be. I never opened it. I threw it in the fireplace at Milo's and watched the flames eat her words before I could. And as for Blake, Lila didn't just expose him, she ended him. His company dropped him. His family cut ties. I heard he left town. Good. Let him start over somewhere new, preferably alone, preferably broke. But here's the twist I didn't expect. I didn't stay broken. It started small. A job offer came through from a client who'd heard what happened and wanted to help me land on my feet. Then I moved out of Milo's and into a little rental near the lake. Quiet. Peaceful. The kind of place where your thoughts can stretch without bumping into old ghosts. And then one day, while grabbing a coffee, I met someone. Her name was Leona. She complimented my grumpy hoodie, and I laughed harder than I had in months. She didn't know my past. She didn't know Camille. She just saw me, tired, awkward, trying, and smiled anyway. We're taking things slow. No big declarations. No playlists. Just coffee, long walks, shared silences that don't feel heavy. And every now and then, I catch myself thinking, maybe I needed to be broken like that. Maybe I had to lose someone who didn't value me just to remember I was never the one unworthy. Camille lost more than a husband. She lost the one man who still believed in her when she stopped believing in herself. And me? I found freedom in the ashes of her lies. No revenge. No screaming. Just the ring, the receipts, and walking away before she even thought to stop me. And that was the last word between us. Not rage. Not goodbye. Just silence. And peace.